And now we are back with part 3 of this video. I tell you, Rector, I just kind of like the idea where we just like ramble on for half an hour, and now I have to add all this in, so it's going to be a labor of love, but thank you,
Hey, I
YouTube.
made easy. I made easy.
Hey, I'm not saying... Okay, so I apologize for the awkward transitions right there, but again, just getting used to this. But what Raptor wants to do is talk about our speculations on what happened. And, Raptor, I'm very curious to hear what you have to say. So, as always, please go first.
Okay. Well, as for my own personal theory, I think that I'm just making this up on the spot. That the Zeo crystal may have grown too powerful for its own good.
Okay.
And perhaps it broke itself, which would have, perhaps it still allowed the Rangers to morph, because we saw that happen twice post Zeo. And, however, it made their Zords unusable.
Okay, because the power source of the Zords is technically Zeo Crystal, which is those little crystals they get from the Morphers, and that's powered by their Zeo Crystals. Okay, so I can see where you're going with that.
Sort of like when at the beginning of Season 2, the Rangers had their Zords destroyed, but they could still morph.
Yes, but the Zords and the morphing were not tied in.
They weren't tied in?
Well, until the second season, but that's a whole other thing to get into.
So my theory is that something similar happened during that gap, and maybe I can say there's a retcon. That's why they didn't bring the Zords in for the last battle. Forget that whole "there's no time" comment.
Yeah, which is hilarious, but it's actually one of my favorite scenes in Power Rangers.
I mean, it's very unique
because it's a great reverse. They're growing to fight giant robots.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yes.
So yeah, basically summed up, my theory is that the Zords became unusable because too powerful, and that necessitated new Zords. But these new Zords used a new power source.
Which is obviously from the morphing grid, but not really substantiate what that is. Because, of course, later seasons would say we got it from the morphing grid, but that's not really a power source. That's more of an access point to manipulating matter, I think.
No. Well, actually, it depends on what definition you want to go with.
Exactly, and that varies from season to season sometimes. Specifically, I'm thinking of Jungle Fury and RPM.
Yes, but you also have Operation Overdrive, where the morphing grid is a place you can visit, an alternate plane of existence.
Yeah, and that's another video within itself. But
yes.
I definitely understand what you're saying right there is that because it's a perpetual energy source, it became too powerful, could overload the Zords and become an issue that way. Is that
or just make it so they're unusable?
Yeah,
kind of like when you
put AA batteries into a AAA remote or something,
or when you have your computer plugged in, power surge, hit the computer.
That's another thing too.
But please, now share what you think.
I've always wondered, but I have to admit that's one thing I've never really thought about giving an explanation for. Because again,
you don't care either.
I care. It's just that I never thought of rewriting Power Rangers history because I always did have that feeling that something would be explained at some point, whether we would get to an anniversary episode and dialogue would be exchanged or something, which, to be honest, Forever Red would have been a great time to have done that, particularly if they had done the 2 parts that Mitbomic wanted.
There was probably footage shot for it.
And it's out there somewhere. But, if I had to go ahead and make any type of educated guess, if you can call my guesses educated, I would say, all right, I'll tell you this. I read a fanfic years ago, and I can't tell you what the title is, or the name, or even the overall plot, really. I'd almost forgotten about it. But basically, it was a story that took place between Goes Gold and Turbo, where it attempted to explain what happened. And its premise was that Bulk and Skull were kidnapped by aliens for experiments. I believe they were the Horath, which is what Trider was a species of. And that was tied into the overall narrative with the Power Rangers. Their Zords were not destroyed in that, but basically there was like this alien attack with that was all tied in basically with Rita and Zed also having to fight them or something of that
Oh,
nature.
so they had to team up?
I don't think it was that. I think that was the comic, the Zeo comic,
Okay.
that Linkara had reviewed. But it really had something. The whole basis of it is Bulk and Skull's side adventure became a pivotal plot point.
That's cool.
Yeah, exactly. And I imagine that something like that had actually been a Power Rangers episode or miniseries or whatever and all that would tie all those elements together because it does seem that Zeo does set up these things not just to forget about them. Now, let's also point out that Fox was experimenting with a Bulk and Skull spinoff, which, believe it or not, that was actually Skull inherited a hotel and he and Bulk went to run it.
Where was it? Did they say what it was supposed to be? Was
Well,
it
not
supposed
in
to be
Angel Grove.
Not in Angel Grove, I could say.
But yeah, that's supposedly why they're going to leave. Although a Bulk and Skull detective series in France would have been quite interesting.
Yeah, more interesting than Turbo.
Exactly. So that, obviously that might have been a reason to write them out. You had to write Jason out, I guess, because they weren't going to have him in Turbo. I don't know.
He wasn't contracted to return.
Although, if they would have just given Blake Foster's money to Jason, something it would have been significantly different.
But no, we need to get a kid to appeal to the kids. That's a dead horse.
Yeah. And then, of course, the Machine Empire with Lord Zed and Rita coming back. I don't know how that was going to go ahead and tie in. I don't know why they set that. Because, again, even if you consider they were the villains in Turbo, it still wouldn't have made any sense in the long run, I think.
It doesn't even make sense with because supposedly is to attract lapsed fans. Well, what would attract lapsed fans like the return of Rita and Zed?
Exactly. Particularly if you made Zed like he was in the first few appearances of the second season. So, again, I don't have any real speculation. I didn't even think we were going to ask that question here tonight. I just made
that theory up right now.
Oh, yeah, and I understand. And I would like to be able to give some actual thought to it. Not that you didn't give any thought to it, just that you know how I am with my theories and stuff like that. So,
yes, you're less likely to improvise than I am.
Yes. But, Raptor, I think ultimately what it comes down to is that we, the fans, were screwed. And I don't think anybody cares anymore. That's the thing that kind of bothers me. And that's what I ultimately have to say about it.
We're the ones who aren't asking about it. You get a few people who write a fan fiction here and there.
Yeah.
But otherwise, no one's cared. No one's asking. You admit that you hadn't even really thought about it. And we didn't even, this wasn't even our idea to make this podcast.
Yeah, and I love discussing such things. It's just that if one of these days I am going to go ahead and do, I decided to do like top 10 list of Power Rangers things that I hate. And,
that'd be fun.
And I think this will be on the list because it is one of those things that genuinely does annoy me. Because when you go from season to season, especially in the first 6 seasons, you have to have established continuity. When you go from Lightspeed Rescue to Time Force, you really don't need that because you're establishing different characters, a different scenario. Yes. But in this case, unless you're going to do a complete reboot or get brand new characters that was passing the torch, the episode, then I just don't see why they did it the way they did. That's the thing.
Understandable.
So, guys, I wish we had more to go ahead and talk about this, but we definitely wanted to fulfill Sincere's request because he did ask that. And I'd like to think we did a good job given the number of issues right here. So what I ask is, first of all, what do you guys think of the gap between Turbo and Zeo? What do you think about Scorpion Rain? Your opinions on it? Should they go back to it? And also, on a technical note, what do you guys think of this format? Does this work for everybody? Do you like us breaking it up here within these parts? Because unfortunately, I think that's something that's going to have to continue for some time. So.
Yes.
So, Raptor, any parting words that you have?
I envy people who get to incorporate their own fan fiction into continuity. I'm going to say that. If I ever got to, and you realized I'd do the same thing. If I ever got into some kind of creative capacity on Pokemon, I'd mix in all my theories I've developed over the years, so I can't fault Bomic for it.
Nor can I, but I would very much like to see what happens in Power Ranger Writers.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, guys, thank you for listening tonight. Since it's Thanksgiving week, expect a couple more videos to be coming out. Just because I have all the free time now. Well, now that I have Arkham Origins, I don't think I'll have that much free time.
Yep.
All right, but thank you for listening tonight. Have a good evening, and the tavern is now closed.